Hi, everyone, and welcome. There have been days in the last several years where I've been really angry at the internet and about the internet. And then we host these events, and I'm watching the comments stream in that people are joining from Florida, Oakland, Seattle, Atlanta, Toronto, Motor City, Wilmington, Glendale, Tegucigalpa, which just for the record, I learned that city name very young, and I used to use it liberally as if I knew something about Honduras. So welcome from literally all around the world today. This is so exciting. Erika Alexander, a woman who barely needs any introduction, if she needs any at all, is one of my favorite people on the planet. I'm so excited to bring her in as a part of our 30-minute mentorship series. Something that Erika Alexander has displayed since she started working when she was 14 years old is a real veracity for story, and she does not let anything get in her way when there's a story that she wants to tell. And so she was the perfect person to bring here, because I know, especially in the last couple of years, we've all had to make some pivots to the way that we do things. And I just think Erika is a glowing example of what artists can be aspirationally in terms of flexibility, imagination, creativity, passion, producerial engagement. I will say for myself, I'm joining today from I guess you should know, I'm Emily Best. I'm the founder and CEO of Seed&Spark. That's why I get to be here. I'm joining from just east of the perimeter of Atlanta, Georgia, on Muskogee and Eastern Band of Cherokee occupied land. We acknowledge the Native peoples who are the stewards of the land that we occupy, because it is one small step in eliminating Indigenous erasure. Really encourage you all to visit nativeland.ca, find out whose land you might be occupying, and learn a little bit more about what you might do to get involved, learn more about the history and the culture of those people, and potentially modern ways of supporting them. Thank you for that. And now, without further ado, let's get this started, because we only got 30 minutes. Erika, you're on. Oh, there she is. Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate that introduction. And yes, many props to the Indigenous people. I lived in Arizona for many years, up in the mountains with Navajo and Hopi tribes. And I appreciate that you would acknowledge them. And I'm a big fan of yours, the biggest roadie you've got. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We have certainly gone on the road together and been sort of arm in arm for a lot of pivots. And because we have to dive right in, I'd just be really curious, like, what does it really mean to remix or pivot a project?
Well, my definition of that is, well, first you've got to try one thing. You can't pivot something when you haven't first tried something and see whether it works. And so it's important to have follow through and first try something to its natural end, or at least obstacle. Because often we have a version of it in our heads, but we never gave it a chance to blossom, to do good, bad, or, in between. And then when you do that, you learn something from that process. And you not only learn something, you meet people. And often they can give you new skill sets and advice and suggestions that you hadn't thought of. And when you pivot, you might pivot and say, I thought of this as a drama, but maybe it works as a horror movie. I mean, it's like that. It can be
Yeah.
a solid pivot of turning a genre around when you think that something isn't working. It could be perhaps gaining a partnership in writing because maybe the writing's not as strong and people have said that to you. So you've allowed yourself to make a new partnership in that. It may be that you decide, I don't really like to do what I'm doing, but I do like that. And you
Mhm.
pivot and you say, I'm going to be a DP. That's really what I want to be. Or I'm an actress, but I really love writing. So let me really go that way. So I think you can pivot in all sorts of different ways.
Um, and you answered my second question already, which is sort of why might you pivot, which is it can be a whole bunch of things. Something I really appreciate about you and have always appreciated about you is what a lifelong learner you are. Like how humble for someone who really doesn't have to be, and I also appreciate about you that you really know what you're good at. Um, and so you know what you bring, and so you're very curious about what other people bring, and that's been such a delight in partnering with you also, because you'll say like, here's a thing I don't know that I'd like to know more about, and here's a thing that like, no, everybody needs to listen to me. And just so everyone else knows, I had a dinner with Erika a couple months ago that made me pivot an entire documentary project, because she's like, you're trying to tell the story of how you won, and this is the story of how you lost. And so it reshaped the entire project since then. So this is a very personal topic to me and to Erika as well. Uh, I want you, because we just have a few more minutes, like, can you talk to me about your remix or pivot that you're most proud of? Because you've had a few in the past couple of years that are like mind-boggling in their proportion, creativity, collaboration. So could you pick one, or maybe just talk us through a couple of them, and like why you
Sure.
made the choice?
Sure. Probably the biggest pivot I made was one that took me decades to make. I was an actress since I was 14, as you mentioned, and I saw very quickly that as an African American Black woman and a young woman, there were no ingenue roles. So I thought I'd have to become a creator in order to create different opportunities for myself. But I didn't have the discipline. I didn't know what writers did. I didn't know how to understand the craft. And it took me many decades to apply myself and discipline myself and sit my butt in the chair and complete things. And after I did, new things started to happen. Just so you know, this was a very painful process. You don't know what you know until you try, and you don't know what you're gonna know until you accomplish something. So one of the things I accomplished was learning how to sit down and complete things, then learning how to rewrite, then learning how to rewrite the rewrite, and it just went on and on and on. So out of that process, you now see that I am, I think, really a hell of a storyteller in terms of screenwriting. I've been asked by Josh Whedon to adapt the Giles story in comic book form. I've written a graphic novel that Forbes said was one of the best graphic novels in America, with a writing partner named Tony Purrier. I also have just recently done an Audible series called Finding Tamika that I co-wrote and created. And all of that came from all those years of beating up on myself, but eventually learning that um, it was okay to have the ideas, but the execution was everything. And so it gave me opportunities afterwards. But just so you know, it took me decades to gain that confidence and the discipline and the skill.
That's really helpful. I know that one project recently, like we were talking several years ago, and you said, I'm making a documentary about reparations. And
Yes.
then some time passes and a podcast comes out, which is fantastic, by the way. If you have not listened to this
Thank you.
podcast, yeah, blew my mind on so many levels, not the least of which was one of the most interesting relationships between co-podcasting partners that's out there, which I really loved so much. Erika pulls no punches, my friends. You may not be surprised to know. She will tell
I'm
you
like you in that
what
way,
it
Emily.
is. I aspire to be like you someday. Uh, yeah, can you talk a little bit about that pivot specifically, and like where that sits in the arc of what you imagine that project to become, because it's actually not just a project, you're also testifying in front of committees, government committees as well. So like, just talk about kind of the arc of that project a little bit.
Sure. I'm the co-founder of a company called Color Farm Media. And at Color Farm Media, we call ourselves the Motown of film, television, and tech. And one of the things that I've been wanting to do was make a documentary about reparations. And I knew Joy Reid, and Joy Reid introduced me to Whitney Dow. Whitney Dow is a white man who has been working inside of race and um, things like that for a while. He did Two Towns of Jasper, which was a really fantastic film. And we got together and decided to do it together. One of the things we did early on was try to get some buzz and establish ourselves as experts or thought leaders in the space, because people would ask us, why are you making a documentary about reparations? I went on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, and Charlemagne is a really big proponent of reparations. And after I was done with the Breakfast Club, and we both did it, by the way, me and Whitney eventually, he said, yo, Queen, you want to do a podcast about reparations? Because he had just gotten a deal with iHeart and his Black Effect Network. And now this is why this stuff comes up. I was doing something behind the camera for the first time as a co-director with Whitney, but my writing skills that I had honed for all those years came into play when he said, do you want to do this podcast? And so there we were, having to do a podcast at the same time we were doing a documentary, and we had to deliver it in a month and a half, 12 episodes. And I did it the only way I knew. I said, we're going to do it, make it entertaining. We're going to put things from different genres in there. We had Cree Summers come in, and she was the reparations mosquito. And she took us through the whole history of reparations. We had all sorts of great experts and the real thought leaders and organizers. But to your point, I'm just saying that I did not know I would have to do a podcast, and it turned out to be a great opportunity. But I also knew that I needed to lean on things that I knew well, which was how to entertain people and tell stories. So whatever podcasts were, they weren't going to be just that for me. I was going to try to reach in all my bags of tricks and create something that I could stand behind. And so that's why you got that.
It's such an interesting story, because you were basically ready for an opportunity that presented itself to you, which is not always the case. Like, what you're talking about is you put in the hard ass work preparing for something you didn't know what it was necessarily. So that when somebody just said, hey, want to make a podcast in a month and a half, you're like, yeah, I have the skills to do that. Right. And you weren't having to sort of say like, no, I'm not ready yet. I think it would take me 6 months. Like, it's really just an amazing example of you prepare, you don't necessarily know what for.
That's right.
And the confidence that you have in those skills that you've prepared are so exciting. I think about that sometimes from an entrepreneurial perspective. Like, I can be in pretty much whatever state, and if you put me in a room to like pitch my vision, I know that I can do it, and like, that's not because of some special quality about me. It's because I have more than 10,000 hours at it. Right.
Well, that's actually not true. Emily, you're one of the most amazing entrepreneurs I've ever met in my life. I've never seen anybody like you. And I took, frankly, because I was starting a business, my partners kept saying, Emily's a good mentor for you. She understands it intrinsically, and you do. And so whenever I see you, I'm just trying to map my ambitions onto you and say, what would Emily do? Because I find you not only to be very hardworking, but you're magically delicious in this arena.
Everybody, we're going to end this time because my life is, I've done it. I'm shutting it all down. I've achieved the ambitious state, and I'm good. I don't need to do anything else for me. I wasn't really ready for that to happen today, but cool. I guess we'll button it up from here. No, we can't do that because we have these amazing creators coming online. Erika, I'm not going to be able to process what you just said to me. I love you so much. I can't stand it. This is the best moment, and I will always have this moment in this charmless Airbnb in Georgia. I want to bring up our first creator because this really is an opportunity for creators from our community to reach out to you. So Sophia is going to come on. Sophia has an incredible project live on Seed&Spark right now called Pecadillo. It is 108% funded in just 15 days of a campaign. She's got 15 days left. And part of that is thanks to one of our patrons. So we have a bunch of amazing creators who are like pretty far along in their careers who have committed funds to our crowdfunding projects that we send to them. And Cooper Samuelson from Blumhouse Pictures chipped in a chunk of change. And also, Sophia, did he read your script?
I don't think so, but I hope he will.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining, and ask away.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is just wonderful to get a chance to hear you speak. It's very inspiring. And also a great opportunity to ask you and get some feedback. So I often, when I'm writing the first drafts of a script, I often write too many scenes, right? A lot of these scenes I'm really in love with, but then I realize that it doesn't help the story move forward. I get stuck, the story gets stuck, and then I basically think to myself, should I give up or should I start from scratch again? What do I do? So what are your suggestions on detaching yourself from these, scenes that you're very in love with and that you think that are glorious, in order to make the story move forward? I know the term of kill your babies, but sometimes that's really hard. So what are your suggestions there?
Sure. And thank you, Sophia. Congratulations on your journey and your success so far. I'm really happy to see you in the space. It really matters, especially for this new century, that you succeed. And more importantly, that you're able to provide opportunities to other people in how you build going forward. Here's what my suggestions are. I know exactly what you're talking about. But think of it this way, because it was a little harder back in the day, but think of it this way. You're not killing anything. You're allowing the project to breathe and to tell you what it needs to be. And the reason why, if you've written it, thank God for these computers, it hasn't gone anywhere. You pull it out and you see if it still resonates, but you have to live with it for a while, that new version, to see, wait a minute, I didn't really need that. I already did that job. You're not living for the scenes, you're living for the experience. So great scenes don't go anywhere. Believe it or not, they'll pop up in other projects. That, the power of that scene is probably what you're holding on to, how it made you feel, that great dialogue. Well, you always write great dialogue and just be proud of it, but pull it out and see if the story still works without it. And if it does, then trust me, you won't miss it. And you always be able to go back and read those scenes and say, oh, there they are. They haven't gone anywhere. And so that's what you're going to do, is make a different version of it. And then just go whole hog and take out all those scenes. Be brave about it. This is no place to be a coward, because you have to edit, not just for time. You have to edit for, you want the audience, you want to think about their experience. And you'd be surprised how quickly, it's true, one picture tells a huge story, that you won't need much to say those same things. And then you also have to allow the actors to do their job. They just can't sit there and say your words. They come in with a whole lot of stuff the minute you place that camera on them, and so allow them to just blink. And in their blinking and looking at each other, sometimes they've said everything you wanted to say. I think that it's a great act of courage to write something, and it's a bigger act of courage to edit it. And then you go back, and as you grow older, you'll find out that you say, oh, look at that. Ooh, I was really wordy and didn't need to be. I was just going off at the mouth. And other times you'll say, look at how beautifully I wrote. How wonderful that character was. Too bad I didn't need him in that movie, or too bad I didn't need him in that space. But it doesn't go anywhere. So just have courage. It sits on your computer somewhere, and it lives.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. And you were talking about rewriting the rewrites. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things as a writer. Um, yeah, I mean, how you choose the scenes that you wanna keep when you keep rewriting? Can you go back and like place one of the scenes back into your rewrite, or that's when I get super confused of
You absolutely
everything.
can, but
Yeah.
here's what you have to do. You have to be very disciplined and not start to use pieces and parts all over the place that don't make sense anymore. Because
Okay.
then what you are doing is cannibalizing your work. So be very disciplined, because after a while you get confused. You're like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it was better when I didn't have. That's what table reads are for. Sometimes you
Okay.
get a strong table read. You have people sit down and you record it, and then you just listen to it. And
Okay.
it'll tell you where your film is again. And again, you have to have the courage to forget those scenes and put them in the past, and not try to cannibalize or make a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you get confused, don't worry. Ask yourself, what was your original intent? Ask yourself what that sequence was supposed to do, not that scene. What was that sequence supposed to do? And then
Okay.
ask yourself what that sequence was supposed to do in the entire arc of the film, or that arc of the act. And if it's not doing that, then cut out everything that isn't doing it, or put back something that you say, no, I absolutely need that character to say that, or to be there, because if they don't hear that, that scene later on doesn't work. So you have to be very disciplined, and don't create a Frankenstein monster that you can't control.
I love that advice. Yes. Thank you.
Sophia, thank you
Good
so
luck.
much.
Thank you so much. This was very inspiring.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Congrats and welcome. I'm going to have a follow-up question about table read etiquette here at the end. But I want to bring up our next creator. Hannah is a creator behind a wonderful project on Seed&Spark right now, 75% funded, just 8 days into her campaign. And Amoya is a short horror film. And I highly recommend you check out both Sophia and Hannah's projects. And y'all, as this community, we got to all go put in $5 and get Hannah across the green light. She's only got 5 minutes to go. We got to do this.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. That's so sweet. Oh my goodness. Erika, you're super inspiring. I'm like kind of honestly shell-shocked to be speaking with you. You're awesome, and I love hearing you speak. I think my question for you would be, you've had such a long and like glorious career at this point, which is awesome. But like, how do you keep going? Because this is just peaks and valleys, and it's up and down all the time. Because I'm also an actor, director, writer. So all of these things we're told no all the time. No. So like, what do you fall back on, or like, what do you keep going to like fill your well, I guess, because it does get disheartening sometimes.
Thank you, Hannah. First of all, congratulations on everything
Thanks.
you're doing. And I really appreciate the compliment and the encouragement, because actually doing things like this with Seed&Spark is very fulfilling. Talking to new creators and artists and getting to know you, and then being able to look later on and say, oh, I met her. She's fantastic. Look at her. She's doing so well. Or, oh my God, what is she doing in handcuffs? Anyway, just kidding.
No,
just kidding. No, meaning that life moves on. Here's the thing. I think it's important to give back, because you have much more that you know. And sometimes you can feel like you're in a holding pattern. But talking to people who are just starting reminds me that I do have a lot of water under the bridge, and that I can feel very accomplished, even if the world isn't telling me so. There's something to give. And I also believe that what you give, you get to keep. So that helps motivate me. And also, I try to learn new skill sets. I think you'll see from what I was talking about with Emily, that learning the craft of screenwriting, and then learning the craft within screenwriting of how to write comic books, or how to write a podcast, or how to an audible series,
right.
or how to fill in the blank. I'm also a photographer. I just got in the DGA. I'm a director. I was trying to do all these things, Hannah, to do the one thing I thought I did do well, which was acting. And when that wasn't going, and I had, the systemic reasons for it, whether it's racism, gender preference, all that stuff, and also the fact that, that's just how things go if you're an artist. I taught myself new skill sets. And I think it's important that an artist create wherever they are. You don't need permission to create. You might need permission to get it funded and get it distributed, but then you don't, because Seed&Spark makes that possible. You have to ask yourself at the end of the day, what you came in this world to do. Did you come in this world to suffer and be frustrated about something, or can you find a way and make a way? And I think it's really important for us to say that it doesn't always turn out exactly the way we want, but if you move forward, that's what you need to do. And I don't know what I would have done other than that, because after a while, in fact, there were times where, I was didn't have any money, eviction notice on the door. I'm not even kidding. This after living single, and embarrassed about it, and struggled through it. Was bartering my time with my hairdresser, going and fixing up her hair shop and getting my hair done for auditions. That's what I did. And that's the only way I know. But just so you know, I am the child of 2 orphans. I'm from Arizona, up in the mountains. My father was a Pentecostal preacher. My mother was a teacher. And I spent the first 11 years of my life in a hotel called Starlight up on Route 66. So by the time the German Lutheran Church decided that they thought he had enough charisma and put him in the Lutheran Theological Seminary in Philadelphia, which is where I got my break at a summer program, a movie came to town and they cast me out of hundreds of girls. That was extraordinary. But when I look back at my life and see how many things I've done, like collect cans and go into dumpsters and pull the bottles home, and that's how we got our money, sifting through cushions, and me at 5 years old knocking on doors, sweeping the porches, taking trash out. All of this is a great bonus. Life is tough. That's all I can promise you. That it doesn't change no matter what your financial bracket is, or middle class, whatever. Life is tough. You can get bad breaks from diagnosis, bad breaks from deaths, a lot of heartbreak. I think a creator through all that must find a way to create and travel. Go do something that you would normally do. If you're religious, I'm not particularly religious, go find out what philosophy means. Go check out different religions. Go practice dance, learn belly dancing. Do all you can to prepare yourself, and also to keep yourself stimulated and fulfilled.
Right. I love that. Yeah, definitely keeping myself stimulated is super important and something I'm working on. But thank you.
You're already miles ahead of most people in life, and the courage and the power that you have now only gets bigger. Don't ever think that what the world is telling you is how you're placed in the world. You are absolutely floating with angels if you're a creator. Don't forget that.
Thank you.
I feel like, Erika, you want to say like magically delicious. You are the embodiment, because I think, life is hard, and it is a lot harder for some people. And you have like an interior strength that I know you've cultivated. I'm sure some of it is preternatural, but like you have cultivated over the years, and you have such a way to convey it to others. We're really lucky. You really are a national treasure. And part of the reason we feel so honored to be able to host these events is like as many people as we can help get out. I mean, I don't know if you are seeing the comments, Erika, but this is really resonating with folks from all over the world who really felt like they needed to hear this right now, myself included, because I do think we live in a hyper-connected creator space, and that can also expose us to a lot more than what's hard about our own lives, but what's hard about everything right now. And I think you've made a really profound and powerful case for personal optimism that I really appreciate so much. Hannah, thank you so much for such a beautiful question.
Of course, yeah.
And bringing that out. And there are so many people, Erika, who now want to hear your take on a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And we haven't actually booked time for that, but I think what we will try to do is I'll see if we can avail ourselves of a little more of Erika's time on another day, and we can dig in harder to maybe some of the more block and tackle stuff that we talked about today. I was going to ask you a question about table read etiquette, but it feels sort of silly now because you
No, ask me, because that's good. You promised them, and now I'm seeing the comments. They're beautiful. Thank you so much for everybody who said something wonderful. I'm glad I wasn't distracted by them, because I would have cried. I would have cried looking how beautifully things and people. I so appreciate everybody out there, and thank you for your encouragement and your support of my career. I do not take it for granted. But please ask your questions. Why not?
Well, so you mentioned something really interesting when you were talking to Sophia, which was like, do a table read and listen to it. It's so important to sort of hear your own words and then let the actors bring to it. Now, I have been to table reads where actors are just making up their own lines in the room. And I did not think that was cool, because I believe that a table read is for the writer. But I was curious, because you sit on both sides of the table probably all the time, right? You sit in table reads as an actor, you've sat in table reads as a writer, maybe as both. What do you think is appropriate table read etiquette? Like, what is that for? And when we are showing up there as an actor or a listener, as a writer, what should we expect?
That's excellent. I've never heard anybody say that, but it's absolutely true. And I always thought some actors who did that might be have learning disabilities, and they might be making things up literally because they're confused, or they might have a background in improvisation or comedic, and they make things up because that's their practice. But here's what I suggest: that you tell people at the beginning, and you kind of set the stage and set expectations, what they're there for. And you ask them with great respect to say, thank you so much for coming and being a collaborator. Here's what I need you to do. Please read the script as written.
Yeah.
Because this is for me to help me work on or hear the script. And most people will do that. They want you to be successful. They're happy if you give them a nice plate of food at the end, perhaps, give them a token or something to get back on the train, whatever. But most people want your, there you go. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of, maybe a gift card from it to go get a meal. But that most people will want you to be successful. But you're absolutely right. But I think you should tell them why they're there. And once people know, they're like, oh, well, how can I be helpful? You might say, if you have notes, give them a scribble pad and just say, oh, I was confused about that. And then they just turn it into you. And you might go over the notes with them, but you may not want to, because a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. I'm not kidding you, but and just because they're there as a table read actor or a participant doesn't mean they're qualified to give you notes. But in order for them to get that out of their system, you can provide a way for them to scribble it down. And if you see the note comes from a few people, then that's an issue. So there you go. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. I think that's important, just to sort of qualify, because I think we can all sort of show up with our own desires and things we want to demonstrate. And I think what I hear about all of this is being really clear about your intention and what you're chasing. Like, if I reflect back on the through line here, it's really that, like, you ask this question, what are you here to do? Which is a much bigger question than like make movies, right? It's actually like, but why, right? Why? What are you here to convey? And that clarity of intention and making sure we're clear with our collaborators is just such a wonderful takeaway. And we do need to be reminded.
Yes. And say it any way you want to say it. If you want to say it in still images, then tell that story that way. If you want to say it with a puppet, for God's sake, go for it. If you want to say it in several different languages and have it be a mishmash, then do what you want to do. If you want to say it in silence, do it. Your voice is important, and more important, and more importantly, it's important that you succeed. You're trying to show people that the blueprint is a new print. And so just go for it. That's what an artist does. They're out there in on the range, and you should feel like somebody who's a pioneer, and feel like you don't have to impress people. I know you want to, but you don't have to. You impress people if you have a voice, and it'll get stronger as you experiment and you start to collaborate, and then it starts to refine itself. The next thing you know, boom, somebody's looking for that, or you've created that audience, or you've changed and innovated the game, whatever it is. But at least you're having fun, and you most certainly didn't have anybody tell you what to do. You did it because you wanted to.
I love this so much. Tell us quickly before we wrap up, are you remixing something right now? Are you in the middle of a pivot now?
Oh, I'm always in a pivot. Girl, I'm so much in a pivot. My head is on a swivel. You hear me? I'm like this. Oh my God. If anything, I've been trying to power down and do less. By the way, I want to just remind people that you can do too much and burn yourself out, or have your fingers in too many pots. I love filmmaking. I'll always be a part of that. I love collaborations. It's great to work with people like we're working together on your project. But right now, I'm doing Finding Tamika, which is out on Audible. Please pay attention to it. I never done an Audible series like that. And again, I made it a ghost story, a neo-noir ghost story of a true crime story, because the woman herself was showing up as a ghost. So I thought, why not? Let me put her in. And also getting ready to have 2 series out, Swimming with Sharks on Roku, and also another series that I'm in called Shining Girls with Elizabeth Moss. And that's really powerful. And in a few days, there'll be a big announcement about the Reparations documentary I mentioned, which is going to be out. And I'm co-director of that, and very happy. And now doing the Diane Carroll documentary and starting that up. So there you go.
The thing that I want to take away from this is something that I do think you, having started so young, do so naturally, which is you just live your life unapologetically as an artist. And I know that's a moniker that a lot of people are actually reticent to take on for a whole bunch of reasons, right? We think we don't deserve it. We think society doesn't favor it. It's really hard to make a living, all of those things. But I mean, everything you just listed is like, that is somebody whose work is as an artist. And that's just fantastic. Thank you so much, Erika. Thank you, Bill. Thank you to our amazing filmmakers. Thank you to, I'm just going to go ahead and say, one of the best crowds we've ever had. So please, everyone in those YouTube comments, give yourselves a huge round of applause.
Yes.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin. It's just incredible. We have lots more events like this and lots more block and tackle educational events. You can find them all the time at seedandspark.com/events. It's pretty clear that, Erika, we're going to need to have you back real soon. You tell us when you can fit us in between the 90 things you just listed, and these folks would like to come back. It also looks like we have some in the chat, some alumna from your high school.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so there was a real crowd here
Girls
today.
High. I love it. Thank you. And if you don't mind, can I say, if you're interested in what I'm going to do in the future, go to www.colorfarmmedia.com and join us. You won't hear from me unless I'm saying something about maybe what we're going to do. We often collaborate, me and Emily, and I hope to go on the road again with you. We did a 10-city tour, and people should know that that was a fantastic tour, and we got a chance to meet people. So now that COVID is over, maybe we should do it again.
I'm ready. Let's do it. Can we start back in Atlanta? Because I just got here after driving across country with 2 kids, a dog, 2 cars, and 45 houseplants. So
absolutely, Atlanta first.
Maybe we can start here.
Maybe we just do it in Atlanta.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you also, Julie and Team Seed&Spark, and Danny, who is manning the comments and said some of the funniest things I've ever said. I'm going to be posting them on the internet. And I just really appreciate your time and your energy. Yeah, y'all, let's do this. All right, take care.
Thank you.